Hi everyone, this is Samit from TalksonGround. Sorry, took a couple of seconds to connect and make sure everything's right. So this is a Ask Me Anything session. Um, was requested a long time ago by many people, but I couldn't do it. So in the last 3 months, a lot of things have happened in the world, and unfortunately, I've been doing a monologue and I've not answered questions that you have. So this is an opportunity for anyone who has questions, and I will welcome anyone who wants to uh, ask a question or whatever. I've already received some questions. So before I go into the uh, other details and take some questions, I have some initial comments. So, in the last 6 months, some very important things have happened in the world of geopolitics and Indian politics and economic affairs and so on. So, what are those? Number one, you had the victory for Narendra Modi in India in June 2024, albeit it was a smaller victory, as in Modi could not get the majority. And after that, you had Modi winning, or rather, BJP, his party, winning a couple of important states recently. So, in other words, even with some hiccups, Modi's reign continues in India. So, that's point number one. The event number two that happened on August 5th was the regime change festered by the United States in Bangladesh, wherein Sheikh Hasina, the incumbent president or prime minister, was um, ousted by a set of protesters egged on by the US deep state. And they installed Muhammad Yunus, a Nobel laureate, controversial at that in that country, and it has power has been handed to some really radical Islamists and so on. And in reality, this has nothing to do with Islam or Bangladesh. Also, it has everything to do with America trying to kind of open another front against India. So that is the second thing that happened in the last 6 months. Uh, Other than that, you had the big defeat for the liberals, the Democrats in the U.S. with Donald Trump winning a big majority for himself, and that has really set the cat amongst the pigeons, so to say, in global affairs. You've had the escalation in the last 3 months of tensions, or 6 months actually, between Russia and Ukraine. You've had, you had those pager explosions and so on. So, a lot of things are happening in the Middle East as well. On the economic front, there was a lot of trouble for the Chinese in terms of investments, and the economy is not doing well. While the American economy is doing okay, there was some backtracking of the interest rates by the US. But now, with Donald Trump coming in, I think they will take a pause because uh, in most likelihood, Donald Trump might be very conservative with his fiscal policies and very shy of doing trade. So he will push hard for tariffs and so on, and that will cause escalation in inflation and so on. So that uh, inflationary environment, which everyone thought was going to de-escalate or decrease, is not going to happen. So that's the other event. In India, there's been a lot of political haggling apart from the elections. So there has been this whole Waqf board bill which the government introduced but hasn't yet passed. It's in the standing committee. And there is the Uniform Civil Code and the One Election, One Nation, One Election bill, which was presented today or passed today in the Lok Sabha. So these are primarily the things that are going on. Interestingly, in India, except from Delhi election, for the next few months, apart from that election, there will be no other elections going on. So this is the time when parties and leaders will consolidate uh, their positions because they don't have to fight elections, but they have to position themselves for the next elections. So this is an overview of what's happening on the India-US relationship. There have been many hiccups. There have been problems with the Indo-Canadian relationship, the Indo-UK relationship. Pretty much all the five I's, as they're called: US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. So all of those people have been trying to push down the Indians in terms of the kind of heft India has in the world. So they are trying to kind of reduce the growth rate of India, reduce its the uh, the speed at which India is growing, and then also create some other issues on the borders so that India is haggled with those problems. And they seem to be succeeding to some extent. It'll be unfair if I didn't mention the attack on Adani. So there was this big Indian conglomerate, which is uh, uh, which is buying a lot of ports around the world. It manages some big projects. It executes actual hard infrastructure projects around the globe, and you can say it is the arm of the Indian government in a way. And surely, the Americans, if they have to hit India somewhere, they will want to hit India's global outreach in terms of setting up ports and airports and so on by attacking Adani with some frivolous charges. So that's what is happening, and this has definitely caused India a lot of problems in their diplomacy and in their geopolitics, because suddenly, if you think back to about 14 months ago, which was around middle September 2023, uh, within 14 months, you can see all the euphoria about India has kind of petered down, and it has been designed to have been done so in a very calibrated manner um, by the Americans, and the Chinese uh, are happy at that. Very interestingly, just before the Trump election happened, the Chinese reached a agreement on the border with India on the disengagement at the Ladakh border and the other areas where the two sides were facing each other for up to 4 years. So these negotiations sped up in the last 6 months after Modi came back to power, and it seemed very clear that Trump would come in. So I guess they didn't want to be on the wrong side of Donald Trump as he steps into office. However, there have been a lot of reportage and a lot of controversy about the appointees that Donald Trump is making. Some of those were, cheered on by the supporters. Some of them have been jeered on by the detractors and so on. But one has to say that his team is very different from what he did in his first term when uh, he was talking big stuff, but his team was of the same from the same uh, the same group of people who was running the show. So this time he's started that Department of Government Efficiency with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. I don't know what it'll deliver, but it's interesting, and he's made all the right noises when it comes to intelligence and in terms of the war, economic affairs, and so on. However, one thing caught my eye, and let me start with the questions. So the question I received is from Delhi. Uh, so, considering Trump's recent invitation to Xi Jinping for talks, what are the implications? So, this is very, very interesting that Narendra Modi has not received the invitation to Trump's inauguration, and Xi Jinping has not only been invited, Trump made a statement about it that he hopes that US and China can together talk and resolve some issues and also solve all the problems of the world. So that's a very big statement coming from Donald Trump, who had a very bad relationship with China in his first term. Most of China's problems stem from Trump's first term, so they will be really happy with it. And I wonder what will happen to their uh, deal with India on the border. So uh, I know this is rhetoric. This is December middle, and he doesn't even get sworn in for another 40 days odd. Uh, well, 35 days. So still, it's a statement. The fact is, Modi hasn't received the invite, and Xi Jinping has. And there has been an appointment of one deputy attorney general who's a Khalistani lady, pro Khalistani lady. Some I forget the name. I'm sorry, but that does show that right now Trump is leaning towards a continuity in the India policy that Biden has carried out, which means there's bipartisan support for the Khalistani elements in the United States to keep needling India. Now, this is big news because, uh, on the other hand, he is also inviting Xi Jinping. So, the early signs of this incoming Trump administration doesn't seem like any relief for India in any regard. Surely, he's made some noises about Bangladesh, protection of minorities in Bangladesh. That's welcome, but one has to wonder whether he will really be different from Biden. And if he's not, then we are looking at another 4 years of a very fractious Indo-US relationship. I'm surprised that India hasn't really hit back yet, but I'm sure that something will start soon. So yes, this invite is an indication. A lot of things in geopolitics and diplomacy are really about messaging, and this is a signal that the second term for Trump might be very different from his first. So let's go to the second question. So this is really about how has been the US's policy towards Ukraine under different administrations impacting India's foreign policy regarding Russia and the West. So, yes, on the Russian front, we might see some relief under Trump's presidency because there will be, Donald Trump is not really looking to get Putin out of office or any of those things that the deep state and the Democrats are so crazy about. They're so worried about Russia, big power on the eastern side of Europe that can run over whole of Europe and so on. Very 16th century kind of thinking, I would say. So I don't think Putin is looking to invade France. Uh, in fact, leave alone France, I don't think he's looking to invade Poland also, or even Ukraine. If NATO was to kind of give him some assurances, or Ukraine was to give him some assurances, in terms of the policy between Biden and Trump, yes, there will be a lot of difference. Surely, Donald Trump has no reason to fund Zelensky with billions and billions of dollars, and maybe just fund the U.S. defense industry. But um, funnier things have happened, and as with this invite to Xi Jinping, we don't know how it'll really pan out. So I would say, in a very guarded manner, that yes, there might be some easing of tensions in Russia and Ukraine, but I think it'll take some time for it to play out. And it also depends on what ambushes and mines that landmines that Biden administration is laying now, so that when Trump comes in, the situation is so bad that he takes a year to just reach back to November 2024 situation. So that'll put Trump's plan back by a year plus, and then you will have you'll get closer to the midterm in the elections in US. So yes, surely, from what we know of Trump, his policy might be different, but on the ground, it might not play out that way for a while. But surely, there are, India's purchase of Russian oil and so on. Those things might be put on the back burner for a little while. We'll go to the next question. Uh, What are the latest developments in the US India defense cooperation? How do they enhance India's security posture against regional threats? There's nothing really happening. I mean, I read that there was a G414 engine deal with the Americans for AMCA or Tejas 2, Tejas 2.0, and the fact is they haven't delivered the 404 engine for Tejas Mark 1A, and it came at a critical time for India, and India shouldn't forget that. I know there could be military leaders and politicians who uh, will want to ignore this. There might be, but India should not ignore this at a critical time. I mean, in a way, this is what Eric Garcetti was saying, U.S. ambassador to India, that look, this is wartime and you can't be buying oil because it's cheaper from Russia. So, in the same manner, Indian and Chinese forces were facing each other uh, in Ladakh and so on. They still are in a way. And US is not delivering on a signed contract, whilst they are delivering engines to South Korea. Yes, they are delivering to South Korea and they're not delivering to India. That tells you where in the American mind India is. People have some misconceptions about what America is going to do to India in the next 5 years. This itself should tell you what will happen. Yes, some MH-60R or whatever 6H, the helicopters have come in. Uh, the drone deal is through or something. Uh, I really don't think deals are going to make a big difference. A lot of these predators were brought down by the Yemeni forces or Houthis, whatever. So, any drone can be brought down really. So nothing's impenetrable. It will be a good validation from a technology standpoint, which you can, maybe disassemble or, reverse engineer. That's pretty much it. But given the record that we have, I really don't, I won't give it much credence. So, yeah, nothing much has moved and it shouldn't unless America uh, delivers on its own promises. Now, this is a question with ongoing tensions at the Indo Chinese border. What are the diplomatic military strategies India ought to prioritize to effectively manage these disputes? Look, Indo Chinese relationship is one which is really decided by the CCP's aggressive stance against India because they want to be the king of the world, the top of the world, the superpower. They don't want India to grow. They don't want even a small power to come up in Asia. So at the moment, they are going through a bit of a slack period because they have divisions within CCP, which even Xi Jinping has recently accepted. They are going through economic downturn. Their population is declining. There are a lot of other issues they have. They have disputes all around their borders. Their trade with US has, suffered reversals. Diplomatically, they were isolated for a while. So surely China is not in a great place right now, but um, and they will kind of play ball with you for a while. But supposing tomorrow the Americans, say Donald Trump leans more towards China, then India would have to choose one of those two partners, US or China, because India is not at the place where it can play it alone. I would go for China rather than the US. Because the Chinese, while they're inscrutable, they're probably as manipulating, maneuvering, intimidating, whatever at the border, and they are an immediate threat. But what the Americans do is they are like termite. So they will infiltrate every body, every cell of every democratic institution, political party, group of individuals, companies, media, defense, you name it. While the Chinese will try and kind of milk you, get some money out of you, surely collect information, maybe collect all your data and send it back to CCP. But America would want to control everything you do, including the breath you take. So the choice is quite clear. And let's be sure, I'm not anti America, but the last 5 years have really shown which side you ought to choose. And it's not the American side for sure. Uh, Now, we are going to now go for the last two questions. How do Trump's foreign policy decisions, approach to trade, influence India's geopolitical strategy and its relationship with neighboring countries? Trump will impose tariffs, not sanctions. So Democrats are sanctions and Republicans are more tariffs. So that's the clear distinction. Uh, so surely the Americans would impose some tariffs on Indian goods. That's the one stick they can beat you with. The other being aligning with Bangladesh. So let's take a step back now. Now, Indian establishment over the last 75 years, 80 years has been worrying about the two front war, the two, at least in the last 50 years. So the two fronts are Pakistan and China. Pakistan on the west and China on your north. And after Balakot and after the 370 revocation and the state of the Pakistani establishment and the military and the economy in the last 5 to 10 years, the threat from the Pakistanis has definitely reduced. So India has kind of managed them. So, and the Chinese situation you already saw, there were troops facing each other for 4 years. Now the Chinese have agreed to step back a little bit. So you would say that, the Pakistan-China axis is now under some control. So what comes on 5th of August, as I mentioned? Bangladesh. Bangladesh is India's eastern neighbor. It was part of Pakistan until 1971, but it was never the front where we really had trouble. We always had trouble on the western side. Now, what America is trying to do is what they could not do with Pakistan. They want to, in the recent years, they want to basically encircle India from the eastern side uh, with Bangladesh and US kind of coming together. I personally feel that Bangladesh is going to get militarized just as Pakistan was. And if anyone in India thinks that Bangladesh will be lesser of a problem, uh, it's not correct. And they will face a lot of problems. India is going to face a lot of issues from the Bangladesh side because it doesn't take too long for a country. Maybe it takes 3 4 years for their uh, for them to be armed and trained, and obviously there'll be American assets sitting there and directing everything. So just like they did with the protests, so there will be a lot of problems in the India's northeast. They've already tested Manipur, so they will spread it to other areas. So very tough times coming up in the eastern part of India. So, how will it influence India's strategy? Surely, India will have to cater for this kind of a problem. They can't completely oppose the Bangladesh establishment because you want some lines of communication. But surely, at some point, India might take some punitive action, overtly or covertly. Covertly, something might be, I'm sure, is going on. Overtly, it'll take a little longer for that. If we will wait for Trump to kind of state what his real policy is, then we can take a call. On the Pakistani side, there will be, I think there will be a reversal for Pakistan because Pakistan is not that favored by Trump. So, um, unless he thinks that India is not behaving, he will not use the Pakistan card. Bangladesh card is not something he created. Uh, it'll be interesting to see if he can reverse it and to what extent. Now we'll take the last question. What ways India is pivotal to US geopolitical strategies, particularly in balancing Asia with growing Chinese influence? That's what we've been talking about. India is not pivotal for them. I know that's what people think, but let's think this through. There is no Indo Pacific strategy without India. Till the time US is not talking directly to China and following the path of G2. The moment they start talking about US and China being two poles and kind of coexisting, then all bets are off. When China is challenging the United States, when China is opposing the United States, when China and Russia are creating a new currency, yes, India's role is very important. India becomes the key player which can swing to from one side to the other and swing the balance power. However, if the Americans decide at the highest level that they are going to cooperate with CCP, uh, we won't know what is the fine print of those kind of agreements. But if they do, then I don't think India is pivotal. In fact, India will be the country that will suffer the most because right now both China and America is trying to fight with each other for having control over India and having India on its side. But both have kind of realized that India doesn't want to take sides, and therefore we are right now having a bad relationship with the Americans, and the Chinese relationship is improving. So there is a bit of a balancing act, but there can be a time when both these countries, when they start getting along with each other very well, that's the time when India has to be careful. That's where Russia and Europe will come into play. That is where Saudi Arabia could come into play, Israel could come into play, Iran could come into play, and that is where India has to play its game and the global south. So, luckily, India has not um, put all its eggs in one basket. So, I think we'll be all right. But to answer the question, no. In my personal opinion, India is not pivotal. It was until 14 months back, until the Americans decided that it has to tamper down India or control India more than partner India. So that's the sense I get from their policies in the last 15 months. So this is where I am at in terms of this question. So this was the Ask Me Anything first session we've had on Talks on Ground. Hope you enjoyed it. Send me your questions either in the chat. You can also write directly at our email ID or comment on any of the videos. I look forward to interacting more with you guys. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you all. Please like, subscribe the channel and share this video with others. Thank you and good night.